Hi, this is Sen and Desiree, and we're here to think with you and talk together about the revised time allotments for kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. So let's look at a sample day. Sen and I have put together a possibility for what a kindergarten day might look like, from opening, letting the kids in, putting backpacks together, getting their homework turned in. What you might have next during the day would be your ST time, where students are leveled by foundational skills. And if you remember, when Sun and I saw you for the third trimester, we looked at a unit that included the text Busy Beaver. So we all might do some shared reading from that text. And then I might pull a small group that day to work on producing rhyming words, since that is a foundational skill in kindergarten and some students need that type of support. Integrated ELD might look like
Integrated ELD might look like you pulling a small group aside and working with this small skill, which is identifying rhyming words. There are three parts of the ELD standards, and there is part 1, which is collaborative, interpretive, and productive, which is what we went over, and there's part 2, which is working with words, and then there's part 3, which is foundational skills. And since we're working on foundational skills during ST, we're also going to be focusing on foundational skills for ELD during this time.
So, Son, I think one nice thing that I can think about is if I'm working on foundational skills during ST, I can be working on those same foundational skills with my English learners, right?
Yes, since there are three parts, it's very important to focus on only one part so you don't get lost in all the other ones. It's okay to incorporate some collaborative, interpretive, and productive aspects of those standards into this part, but it's good to focus on the foundational skills as the main focus.
Okay. So after ST, what might be next in the day would be the reading time, which is homeroom. So there I have heterogeneous students, and maybe I'm focusing more than likely on the reading standards, either informational text or literature, and the speaking and listening standards. So for this example, we thought it would make sense to continue with Busy Beaver, but now we're working and focusing on a standard from the reading informational text, looking at the reasons the author gave to support points in a text, which is a bit different focus from the foundational time. And here, Son, we're looking at integrated ELD again, right?
Yeah, it's just pulling a small group aside to see, maybe for 5 minutes, to see if they can grasp maybe one small point that you can make with the author. And I think that's enough. Just pulling a small group aside for 5 minutes to work on the same standards, but see if they can focus on one point.
So this integrated ELD time during my homeroom reading time is a lot like what you modeled for us when we met with the kindergarten teachers for the full day, right?
Yes.
Different levels, scaffolding in different ways for the different levels.
Yes, we're not going to have that specific level. We may have a group of emerging, expanding, and bridging students all at the same time.
So they're focused now on a different section of the ELD standards, but ones that are related to the overall standard that everybody's working on during the reading time.
Yes. And their ELD standards, this part is going to be part 1, which is collaborative, interpretive, and productive.
Exactly what you showed during
Yes.
the kindergarten day. Okay. So after that reading time, there's math during your day, and what may be different here is that science portion could be social studies as well, where there is a tie to the big idea. that Busy Beaver came from, that maybe Baby Animals Play came from. A tree is a plant that we're looking at the relationships of plants and animals and connecting it throughout the whole day. So this is the science life. Help me out, son. Life science, LS, standard for that. So there's a read aloud, and then this is the designated ELD time. So we're looking at one level, expanding students, and Son will talk about what they do during this time.
Okay, I'm going to move. Now, ideally, if we have 3 teachers in kindergarten, we would want to group ELs by level. So, for example, we would put the EOs with the emerging students with one teacher, the EOs with the expanding students with another teacher, and then EOs with bridging students with another teacher. So that's how we would do it if there's a configuration of 3 teachers. Now, let's say if there are 2 teachers, I would put EOs, expanding and emerging students in one class, EOs and bridging students in another class.
So I think what you're saying, Son, is in our fantasy land, we'd have 3 teachers at each grade level because there are 3 levels, but sometimes we're just going to have to think of the best scenario for the reality of the situation.
Yes, so with 2 teachers, that is my recommended grouping, and this is a time for designated ELD. And for this designated portion of the ELD, remember there are 3 branches of the ELD standards, and this is the time to work with language. And this standard is based on using verbs, adjectives, sentence structure, noticing how text is structured, and this is a good way for students to access science text.
So, Son, this is different for us. This is tricky. Usually when I teach science, I'm just thinking about kids understanding science, doing experiments in science. Can you help me think through how am I doing ELD and I've got a lot of EOs who are learning science? Can you help me figure out what does that look like?
Science is a perfect time to explore academic vocabulary. So here is a science lesson, but your focus is not just on science, but on language itself, how science text is written, academic vocabulary words, not just the content-specific words, but the Tier 2 words as well, the ones that are used across curriculum. And that's the time that I think is perfect for students to engage in developing language. They're learning content, but at the same time, there are these language objectives that you're fulfilling by introducing language objectives to the students.
So let me see if I've got this straight. You said language objectives, and science is the content area. So my content objective might be that students are learning about what plants need to grow. They can identify that plants need light, nutrients from the soil, water to grow. And for my language objective, I want my English learners, especially my expanding students, to be using proper verb tense in their spoken language. So maybe as I work with those students talking about what plants need to grow, I'm really emphasizing the verb tense that they're using during that conversation and assuring that they're using those verbs correctly. Is that a good way for me to think about it?
Yes, and these verbs don't have to be in the realm of science. They can be Tier 2 words, Tier 2 verbs that are used in every single area.
But they probably are words I use in science too, right? Because
Yes,
Tier 2
definitely.
would have application for science. Okay. And then we have the writer's workshop portion of the day where we're doing a mini lesson on thinking about reasons for an opinion, and we have a focus for our integrated ELD time as well.
Pull the students 5 minutes and then work with them with this standard, which is provide good reasons for an opinion. And since students might not be very vocal this time, they can do a lot of things orally with a lot of teacher support, and you can help them write. but then you can also provide them sentence frames, but that's the ELD portion, is you're using Writer's Workshop, but pulling a small group aside. It may be multi-level and using good reasons for opinions, providing good reasons for opinions as your lesson objective.
So I think what I appreciate, and hopefully what we'll see more and more, is that the ELD standards were written directly to support Common Core ELA. So it's not as if I need to do something so completely different during my integrated ELD portion. It really should work in tandem with my CCSS ELA goal, right?
Yes. And this part, you're using the first part of the ELD standards, the ones with collaborative, interpretive, and productive.
Now, some teachers then talked about the number of times moving in the day because ST is leveled for foundational skills. Science should now have a definite level of English learner during that time. What are your thoughts about helping, especially in the primary grades, there not be a lot of movement happening all day long?
Ideally, if we can designate one teacher to be the teacher of all the emerging students, that would be great. Another teacher to be the teacher of all the expanding students, and then another teacher to be the teacher of all bridging students. That would lessen the need to move and regroup for certain ELD lessons.
So that way, maybe that's my homeroom.
Your
And I'd
homeroom.
only have to move for ST. I
Yes.
wouldn't have to move for the rest of the day. And then I can focus on increasing my skill in that one particular level of English learner, learning as the teacher how to better craft questions for, let's say, the expanding students, how to really scaffold expanding students, how to help them take on the learning they need to have over the year. And son, what if a teacher says, but you're talking to me at the last week of school. We already sorted class lists. We already did this for next year. What would you recommend?
I would recommend talking to your principal about this as your future goal for setting up classrooms.
And personally, I think I would say I'd rather spend a couple hours now than have to move every day for the rest of the year next year.
That's
but
true.
That's a decision teachers are going to have to make on their own.
And classes change during the summer as well, too. So.
So if you have any further questions or clarification, feel free to email Sun Lu at Lu_Sun@AUSD/US or myself, Bradvika_Desiree at AUSD, and we'd be happy to talk further with you. Thanks.